there is a lot of debate right now about Ron DeSantis versus Donald Trump. Who is going to win? A lot of analysis coming from people who don't actually have any background in political science, which I'm starting to realize more and more people do not. Or if they do, they don't actually mention any of it. So we're going to analyze this from a political science point of view. But this article says Senate Republicans fear Trump repeat as 2024 field emerges. And so there's a lot I'll have to get into in that realm. But it says Senate Republicans are growing increasingly worried that a crowded 2024 presidential field could ease the path for former President Trump to once again clinch the party's nomination. The field isn't crowded yet, but former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley's announcement Tuesday that she'll run for the GOP nomination is seen as a harbinger of things to come. A number of prominent former Trump admin officials, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former Vice President Mike Pence, are seen as likely to run. South Carolina itself may have an additional GOP candidate in Senator Tim Scott. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis seems a likely candidate. Possible entrants include New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. In a typical year, there are also presidential candidates from the Senate, though 2024 may be an anomaly in this regard. Look, we are all concerned with the fact that we had 15 or 16 or 17 individuals vying for attention in the last one. We really don't want to see that happen again, Senator Mike Rounds told The Hill. We just don't. Most GOP senators are staying neutral in the race so far, and few are offering any public criticism of Trump or comments specifically stating that they do not want him as their party's nominee. That's interesting that they're doing that. But Republicans in the Senate are, tired of, losing. John Cornyn says, I do worry about that, adding that unfortunately I don't have any control over that. That's, whether Trump wins. I think they would have these people have a ton of control over if this happens. But basically, there's a lot of political science behind this. And so I don't know if you guys know this, but political primaries, like the nominations for president, weren't decided by primaries until after 1973, after the McGovern-Fraser Commission. And so what ended up happening was LBJ decides not to run for re-election because he's not doing well. So RFK is running. I forget who the other guy. There was also another candidate running. He was doing pretty well. And then there was Hubert Humphrey, who's vice president, LBJ's vice president. Hubert Humphrey wins the nomination without running in a single primary, not even one. He didn't even enter a primary. He destroyed because RFK did well in the primaries. Now, here's the thing, right? RFK, he got assassinated in California. If he didn't, he was going to win, right? Psych! That's not true. It's a myth. He was going to lose. I don't know where that myth came from, but he was going to lose. But the point here is, before that, it was party leaders that would just come together and they would decide their nominee. It wasn't open to the public. So in this kind of analogy, like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, big Democratic donors, those would be the people who would come around and they would decide, okay, they would get in a room and talk and say, okay, who should we nominate for our presidential nominee? So this presidential primary thing, it's super new. It was only instituted like 50 years ago, basically, 50 after the McGovern-Fraser Commission, right? The RFK supporters go to the Milwaukee, Democratic convention. They get the shit beat out of them outside. It sparks the McGovern-Fraser Commission, and the commission comes back, says we need to have, a diverse electorate, blah, 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 make sure there's black people on the, in the delegates, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it opens up for primaries for the Democratic Party, and then it opens up for the Republican Party afterwards. They adopt it as well. And so basically since then, right, the theory is that takes away a lot of power from the party elites, right? From the big Democratic donors, media members, the Democratic Party, senior people, whatever, the fucking, politicians, right? And so the thing about this is, even after that, so there's this really cool study here, not study, but it's like a political, academic article. It says Party versus Faction, the Reform Presidential Nominating System. And so the theory in political science basically is this thing called the invisible primary, is what they call it, the invisible primary. And so it's the primary that basically determines who the serious contenders are and who's going to run the year before the primary election actually starts. So that's when you see people going around, like going to super PACs, asking for partisan elites for endorsements, going to media members, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. That's called the invisible primary. And so the theory from this, book, basically, the party decides, is that the party still decides the election even in the aftermath of the opening up of the primary system through this invisible primary. You have to basically vie for big donors, support from Democratic elites or your party elites and all that stuff. But it contrasts this with this, book by Polsby. It's called Consequence of Party Reform. And so basically that was arguing that opening up this primary process like introduces like perverse incentives for someone like a Donald Trump to come out. And so what you can end up actually seeing here in terms of this, I'll read this to you here. It says the Trump nomination is one of the most remarkable developments in the history of American politics, and no politician has come as close to the presidency with as little elite support as Trump had, but this does not mean he was in any simple sense the choice of voters. Trump began the primaries as one of 17 candidates in a wide-open contest. An outsider who was expected by insiders to fade, he made strong showings in the early primaries, attracted heavy and surprised press coverage, grew his factional following, and gradually forced everyone else from the field. At that point, his last opponents quit. Trump had won 40% of votes cast and 53% of delegates awarded. Trump is thus a prime example of what polls before saw, a candidate able to parlay an intense but narrow following into a delegate majority by playing on the penchants of journalists and the dynamics of a sequence of contests. So while nearly everyone has been surprised by Trump's success, his nomination is not, in Polsby's theoretical terms, a surprise. So the internet and the media basically made it so that it was really hard to do any kind of like party deliberations behind the scenes without it being caught. And so the news media is reporting on that now. So there's no way to really do the backroom things without it being reported, at least. And so they get really excited by a factional candidate, because of the way that the primary system works now, you don't need to get actual like a majority. You just need to be the pluralistic victor, right? And so it creates like an incentive to be extremist in what you say, because you're just trying to parlay like this specific thing. And so that's why when people when I say that if it's a 1v1 versus DeSantis and Trump, Trump is going to lose. There's no way he'll win. But if it is the same way that it was in 2016, where it's just so brokered and splintered, Trump is going to win because he has an extreme factional following. So he has like that 30%, pluralistic or 40% support that just won't be swayed. And that will be enough to win if it's splintered. So that's how he was able to win, because the article also explains that, he tapped into rhetoric and things that other people just weren't willing to say. He said things about Mexican immigrants that other people just weren't willing to say. He said things about black people, whoever, that other people just weren't willing to say. He was the only one to say ban Muslims from the country. So he was able to really monopolize that. And so in a splintered race, what you want as many people out of your airspace as possible. Being able to appeal to multiple people in that situation is actually bad. And so these people are considered the party elite, these Senate Republicans who are fearing this. And so they would, if they were to all to just come out against Trump, they would be able to win, because DeSantis is winning. Here's a good one. It says, according to recent polling conducted for the Club for Growth, Trump trails DeSantis in a one-on-one matchup, 49% to 40%. However, when the field expands to include Pence, Haley, Pompeo, Scott, and Youngkin, Trump leads the Florida governor with 37% to 33%, prompting some concern. So this is what you can see. So a 1v1, DeSantis is definitely going to win 100%. Everyone's going to be behind him. I know people are trying to do their, completely apolitical science and scientific analysis of, the debates. The debates don't make any difference scientifically. Saying that the debates make a big difference is like saying gravity's not real. The science clearly shows debates do basically nothing. And Trump never got, I don't know where people got the idea that like Trump got this big debate boost, or even a debate boost at all. He was able to do well in the debates because he was winning. That's how he was able to, all he would go on there and say, you suck. Your numbers are low. My numbers are high. F you, F this. He was able to do that because he was doing well. He didn't do well because of the debates. He did well in the debates because he was doing well. I don't even know where people got that from. And then this idea, on the national stage, the media is going to question him and he's done. What? No one cares about the media. We already went over this. The strategy of Steve Bannon, Trump, one of Trump's main political strategists, was let's just disqualify the media so no one believes them. And guess what? They did it and it worked. So no one cares now. That's why Biden is able to succeed with the basement strategy, and a lot of Democrats against Trumpian candidates are doing the basement strategy, and it's working. So the media is not going to have any kind of impact. We even saw like John Fetterman, the dude performed really horribly in a debate. He had a stroke, and people still voted for him. So he still won. So it's just like, and then you're going based off of 2016 again, where it's like, he's going to call him mean names and it's going to work. Again, political science, it explains basic terms. It's just basic logic. It's more of a sort of time-centered election. Like, your election is more based on the circumstances around you rather than the candidate itself. And so if you take FDR and plug him into Reagan's time, do you think FDR is going to be successful? No, hell no. FDR was able to get into office largely because of people's desires for a very strong executive to bring back the economy. So that's why he was there. And so you can't like take it and just plug in. So we're in 2024 now. We're not in 2016. So your political analysis of 2016 does not apply to 2024. Now, if he is in a splintered election, Trump will definitely win. He'll definitely win for show, because of that factional victory. He has his faction that just can't be taken down. He'll get his pluralistic dub. Other people will drop, and he'll be able to win. But if it's a 1v1, he'll win. And so the article kind of breaks down, like the academic piece, it kind of breaks down like how the elites weren't able to stop Trump. They couldn't take him down. And I don't know if the elites have ever been tasked with the taking down of someone before. They usually decide who to take, not to take someone down, typically. So, they just couldn't figure it out because they were just so splintered themselves. There's so much infighting in the Republican Party, as you've seen with the House. And so there's just kind of this big situation of like, okay, well, what ends up going down in terms of all of this splintering? How are they going to be able to come together, and the Republican elites? And so the Republicans are just in such massive disarray. So, who's better for Biden? Is it Trump or DeSantis? I'd say probably Trump is probably the easier one, I would say. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff going down.